Obviously we have a number of guests with us this morning, and it is a pleasure to have members of the 1982 and 1983 First 15s and members of the 2001 and 2002 sides as well. Both groups are here for a reunion over the next couple of days, and please join me in welcoming our guests back to their school this morning. In 1982, the school's roll was 1,185 and College House was full with 145 boarders. The 1982 Palmerstonian tells us that computer education continues apace, with the school's 4 Commodore computers, all of which had their own name, Alice, Beryl, Cedric and Donald, having been joined by an Apple II to make it 5. It was a successful year for the school's sports and cultural groups. 2 young men were selected for national bands and orchestras. The First 11 football finished 3rd at the New Zealand Secondary Schools tournament in Christchurch. 2 members of that team were selected for the New Zealand Secondary Schools team. The First 11 hockey won the Rankin Cup, the New Zealand Secondary Schools tournament, for the 2nd year in a row, with 5 of that team selected for the New Zealand Secondary Schools side. There were similar numbers of teams as there are today across the codes, except for basketball, which in 1982 had 13 teams, which has now grown to 41. The 1982 First 15 had an outstanding season. Undefeated across their inter-school fixtures, the team also travelled to Taiwan to compete in the Pan Pacific Youth Rugby Tournament, where they finished 3rd and lost their only school match of the season. In inter-school matches, good wins over Wanganui Collegiate and Gisborne Boys High School were followed by close matches against Tauranga College, who we no longer play at the First 15 level, and New Plymouth Boys, much as the First 15 did last week. The team also won the Pulse and Banner match against Napier, and the season finished with a 33-0 win over St Pat's Silverstream. 2 of the team, Captain Kurt Dew and Mosi Colotto, were selected for the New Zealand Secondary Schools team. The vice-captain of the team was Steve Cumberland, who unfortunately passed away recently in Japan, and I would like to acknowledge Mr Cumberland this morning. He was a popular figure in rugby, not only in New Zealand, but after a successful career with Otago, but also in Japan, where he played and coached. His loss will be keenly felt. In 1983, the Te Aute and Gisborne results were reversed, but the other matches were won. This time though, a nail-biter against Silverstream that saw the opposition miss a penalty on the final whistle that would have won them the game. In 1983, the team toured Australia, where they were unbeaten in their 5 matches. In 2001, Mr Higgy, Mrs Patworth and Mr Van Stiprian joined the staff, while Mr Ridge, head of PE and a staff member at Boys High for 32 years, retired. The OK Corral won gold at the National Choral Finals. The Senior A badminton team won the national title for the 2nd year in a row, and there was success for school athletes at the New Zealand Secondary Schools Athletics Championships, including sprinter Hayden Townsend, the Duxford Durham in 2001 and 2002. The Super 8 competition had been in place for 3 years by 2001, and the First 15 was coached by Mr Jury, current head of PE, and the coach of the Under-14A team this year. The team had a number of close losses, but good wins over Hamilton and Whanganui Collegiate were highlights of the season. The team also played a number of matches in the local Under-21 competition. And captained by James Oliver, many of that young team returned in 2002, the school's centennial year. In 2002, the First 11 cricket team won the Super 8 title, as did the Senior A debaters, the badminton team, the First 11 hockey team, the clay target shooters and the tennis team. 6 Super 8 titles in 1 year was an outstanding result. The First 15 had a much better season, with good wins over Hamilton, Hastings, Wellington College and Tauranga Boys. 17 wins out of 21 matches for the season meant it was a very successful year. A number of the 2002 First 15 went on to play representative rugby upon leaving school, including Johnny Leota, who would play international rugby for Samoa. It is always a privilege to have our old boys join us for reunions, and we hope both teams enjoy the chance to catch up with one another and that they enjoy the weekend. Now we're going to have a couple of presentations, firstly from Mr Hamish McKay from the 1982 team, and then Mr James Oliver, captain of the 2002 side. So Mr McKay.
Thanks, sir. Gentlemen, I'm a rare commodity in that I can report the name of every player in the first 15 from 1979 to 1983. I'm not going to put you through that, but what I would like to say on behalf of both the 82 team, where I was a dirt tracker reserve, but honoured to have been part of it and played in a few games that year, and in 1983 again. The 1982 side, of course, coached by the man this hall is named after, Ian Cahoon, affectionately known, well, sometimes not affectionately, but known as Coke. Coached a very fine side in 82. He had actually wanted to do it again in 1982. His first year of coaching was when my dad was captain in 1956. And by 1982, he was deciding that maybe it was time to hand it over to somebody else. Such was the feeling about the 1982 team, nobody else wanted the job. Nobody else wanted to coach the team, so Cope, with his erstwhile assistant, Digger Doyle, stepped up and they took the 82 side. We went off to Taiwan, where we did, yes, get taught a lesson on one particular occasion, but we did finish that particular tournament on a high. We came back and had a sensational season. What I will say is, like any memory of a great team, there is always a fine line between pleasure and pain. And on the gully ground that year at New Plymouth, we were done. We were down. It had been an absorbing, entertaining, end-to-end game. 6-3 it was, with 5 minutes to go. And New Plymouth, who had disrupted our scrum that day, they put us under all sorts of pressure, were hot on attack, and we managed to force a turnover. And Mark Clavis, who was our right winger, ran 90 metres to score the winning try off a turnover. So fine line between pleasure and pain. The same thing happened a few weeks later against Mount Albert Grammar. Mount Albert had won the original top 4 competition, to which we had turned down the invitation because it clashed with traditional games. And on that occasion again, it was Mark Clavis who ran 90 metres to score a try that sewed it up for us there. So 82 had a wonderful team, and Steve has been mentioned, Steve Cumberland, who was an amazing character of this school, and a real leader of men and a real inspiration. He lived out Longburn way. When he was a 3rd and 4th former, and a good friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Gary Kilgar, who played in the team a few years before, reminded me of this. They used to call him Pinky. He was so big, and he used to get quite flushed, Steve. To get into the first 15, he would run to school from Longburn, rugby train, and then run home again. He was an incredibly dedicated guy and a great member of that team. The 83 side, has been mentioned, did lose a couple of games. We did get absolutely taken apart by Gisborne boys after one of our team in particular decided to stay up all night and watch Wimbledon, and didn't really turn up in the midfield. The 83 side was captained by Mosi Colotto, who's here with me today. Mosi had 4 years in the team, and I think Ian Cahoon is on record as saying he was the greatest player to play schoolboy rugby at this school. So it's great to have the greater Mosi with us here, although Sean Bristow and I, my fellow props, do remember the last minute against Tialti, pushing Tialti over the line and turning around to throw our arms in the air in jubilation and celebration that Mosi just dived on the ball and scored the winning try. Unfortunately, he knocked it on, but it was the one mistake he made in 4 years there, so, you know, if that's all right, can I get away with that story on this particular occasion? In 83, I do want to acknowledge Digger Doyle. The rector, Eric White, was away on a Wolfisher scholarship, swanning around Europe, and Ian Cahoon ran the school, and Digger Doyle coached the 1983 first 15 for the greater part. And he did an amazing job, Digger, and history has shown he probably should have stayed on and coached the first 15, but that's for another day and another discussion. We've acknowledged Steve Cumberland. I also want to acknowledge 2 members of our 83 side who passed way too soon. And if I had... Is that Cahoon's bell getting me up in the morning? It's pretty slow at that. If I have one bit of advice, guys, is live where your feet are now. This is real. It's brilliant, you're having a great time, and life gets better and you have a great time, but look where your feet are now, because there's two members of our 83 side. Jeff Hope Whitten, as he was in our team, passed away as a result of a car accident before the first Rugby World Cup in 1987. So we're talking, what are we talking, sort of 35 years ago. And Jeff was a front rower and was one of the real entertainers of our side. And Robert Lalby, who was in the first 15 for a number of years, he was a youngster in our team that year with a huge smile. He passed away in the early 90s from blood-related cancer. So, guys, that's what happens. Statistically, it will happen. So, as I say, live where your feet are now. Enjoy every moment. These are fantastic days. I'm loving watching the first 15 now. I enjoyed watching the, not so much the Napier game, because obviously there's a great rivalry there, and we still talk about my old mates from Napier Boys about the awesome banner games of our day. But the win on the Gully the other day I thought was superb. It's great to be able to watch that. It's an honour to be back here and to speak on behalf of some superb rugby players, and then one or two more like me who just got a bit lucky. But thank you very much for having us. We're looking forward to a very good weekend. Thank you.
Morning everyone. Just takes me back a little bit. Funny, Hamish actually said he didn't have much to say, so I'll keep it brief. It's funny though, this morning my mum still lives in Palmy, so I stayed there last night, came down from Bay of Plenty, but we were having coffee this morning, looked at my watch and she said, you better get moving, you don't want to be late for school. And even just standing here now, it takes me 20 years sort of just disappears. And you're right back, and as a seventh former, we used to sit up here at that point. And as we were coming down the side here, I've got lasting memories of kids with too much gel in their hair, with their head under the tap, getting it all rinsed out before assembly. And I actually thought during the week that I was probably due for a haircut. It was a touch of a collar, so I was a bit self-conscious. But like I say, 20 years does go pretty fast. And when you think about it, it was over sort of half our lives ago now. And you start looking at time a little bit differently when you get on a little bit, and in 5 years, school's actually quite a small percentage of your life, but in terms of an impact and what it has down the line, it plays a much bigger role than just 5 years. So the guys that are here from my vintage are absolutely looking forward to getting around the school and seeing the growth and development that the school's made. In terms of, not only in terms of the physical side of it, of the buildings and everything, but also what the students are doing, the successes they're having. Rugby is sort of what brought us here and brought us back, but it's certainly going to be a small part of the weekend as we catch up and trade a few war stories and embellish a few things. Hamish, your memory is much better than mine, I think. The concussion protocols probably aren't what they weren't what they are today, so a few hazy moments from my days, but like you said, we're looking forward to getting around the school, seeing what everyone's up to, and absolutely looking forward to the first 15 doing a good number on Tauranga Boys tomorrow. So again, thanks for having us, thanks to Rachel Wyndham for organising everything, and like she said this morning, herding cats, getting everyone together. It's amazing in an age of social media and constant contact how hard it is for certain people to get back to people and get in touch with people. So we appreciate the effort, and we're very happy to be here. So thanks very much, and go well, lads.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKay and Mr. Oliver, for your words this morning. There's lots of names that come up in their presentations which are very well known in the history of the school, and in names that are on a number of honours boards around here. Mr. Oliver's is on that one there, the prefect board from 2002, so he would be reasonably familiar with standing here at the lectern and speaking. But again, thank you, gentlemen.